All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a video that I've been building up to for quite some time now. So before we begin, I just want to talk about this game, this massive, complex game that scares off a lot of people. I can see it happening because it is so complex. And some people look at it and they just say, no, forget it. And I understand that. There are some games that I'm just not drawn in. It's too complicated. The interface is not good. I don't know why, but I'm repelled by them. Um, Eve Online was one. I tried Eve Online, and they advertise heavily across a lot of platforms, and I gave it a try, and it's just like, eh. I'm not big on the open universe where it's just like, yeah, just go and do stuff, and I'm like, well, that's kind of like my life right now. Like I can just go do stuff, you know. Anyway, my point being this: 1914 is such a complex game, so many layers that it never, like I can honestly say one never stops being a student of this game. And that's what I love about this game so much. So let me describe to you my concept of the three general categories of player in this game. So the first category is the apprentice, right? The freshman, the entry level player. But to me, the apprentice, it lasts a while. In terms of real time, it can be a year or two or three, depending on how much people study and try and investigate and dig up resources. It can be probably people can leave their apprenticeship as quickly as 4 to 6 months or something. But in the apprenticeship phase, in my opinion, that's where you learn how all the units move. You learn what they're good at, what they're not so good at. You learn, for instance, that armored cars defend. Each armored car defends as 2 infantry, right? Effectively as 2 infantry. It's where you learn that armored cars travel at 72 kilometers per hour, whereas infantry travel at 36 kilometers per hour. It's where you learn sort of the basics of all the pieces. And I don't mean to belittle this because there's a lot to know. And I'm reminded all the time when people are like, how do you fly planes? And to me, it's like, oh, you just fly them. But then I think back and I remember like, no, in the first few months when I was playing, I didn't understand air power at all. In fact, I'd never really gotten deep enough into a game to ever have any. And that's the point of the apprenticeship, is that you just play the game. You just keep playing it. You talk to people. And then eventually you get to that phase in the game where you have air power. And when that happens, you learn it. You learn it quick. If you try to fly your air to a place that doesn't have an airfield, you can see the trail along the ground where the trucks have to, where your planes get trucked there on the back of flatbeds, and you quickly realize, oh, I have to have an airfield there, both from the place I leave and the place that I arrive at, and it has to be within range of my aircraft, right? So all of that to me, though, is apprenticeship. All of that to me is, and if you liken it to a skilled trade, that's what an apprentice is doing. They're becoming competent at the basic elements of their trade, right? So a lot of people are in apprenticeship, and honestly, I would rather have a serious and committed apprentice than a journeyman, that's the second level, who doesn't really care or has other things to do and might drop out. I've had a lot of players who just have massive countries and then they just drop out of the game. And you're like, where did you go? But so that's the first phase, is sort of this apprenticeship. And that's where you learn how all the pieces move. You start to get a sense of all the resources, the idea that you gain more resources when you build factory levels, you gain more resources when you build railways, and more resources when you build harbors, all the basic mechanical stuff, right? Then you move into journeymanship, I think. You become a journeyman. And as a journeyman, you still have so much to learn. That's where you start getting into more complexities, such as realizing that not only do railways increase your productivity of whatever material is being produced in that, particular territory. But it also makes you faster, and you start to make pathways through your territories of railways to get your troops to the front faster. You learn that harbors help you to get on boats and get off boats twice as fast. So you start to build harbors every place where you might need to bridge a canal or get across some water. And it's also where you start to think about, in my opinion, you start to think about morale. Okay, morale slaps you in the face pretty early on because you're capturing territories. And early on, I remember I was conquering, I was doing great. And then all of a sudden, one of my territories was suddenly, it belonged to one of my allies, like in my coalition. And I, messaged him, hey, how come my territory is now yours? Like I thought, did he attack me? But then I was like, no, he never declared war, and we would have had to declare. So like that was me in my infancy, in my, apprenticeship, not realizing that, hey, you have to be worried about morale. When you first capture a territory, it has a morale of 25. If you don't leave somebody there or do something to correct that morale, then if you just conquer on, there's a certain percentage chance, and it's a decent percentage chance, that that territory will rebel away from you. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about that today because, in my opinion, once you've finished your journeymanship, right, to me, once you're done with your journeymanship, you've got a really good idea of what kind of build you want to do. For instance, early on, I thought, okay, I'll build a factory, and then I'll start a cannon building. While I do that, I'll build a railway. That way I can get maximum productivity while my cannon is building. And later I learned that higher level factories build things faster. So that made me readjust during my journeymanship. That made me readjust my build order. What do I want to build next? Do I want to build a railway so I can get more economy? Or do I want to build a level 2 factory, which essentially doubles the speed of everything that I build out of that factory? So that's the questions that you ask as a journeyman. And the very point that you're asking them means that you're a journeyman. It means that you understand these trades that we make between economy and military, between quick conquering and building up strong infrastructure. So when do you move into master, right? There's apprentice, journeyman, master. That's a great question. My dad was an electrician, and he was a journeyman for most of his life. And then towards the end of his life, he went ahead and studied. He'd been around for a long time. He knew his stuff. He studied and he took his exam and became a master electrician. Well, that's a little cut and dried. Obviously, when we're talking about this game, there's nothing like that. You don't take an exam. You don't get a certification. You don't become a master 1914 player. And you certainly don't earn any more money because of that. Nobody here earns any money in this game. But in my opinion, what it means is that you're finally honing down to the very fine points, the little details, the things that hardly anyone worries about or thinks about, these sort of high level things. And there are a lot of those too. So in my opinion, there's just as much of a difference between a brand new noob and somebody who's just starting their journeymanship, right? So somebody who's like level 0, all the way through level 1, between that and somebody who just starts being a master, to someone who is well into being a master in this game. So even when you become a master, don't misunderstand. I don't mean mastery in the sense that you know everything, right? Or that you're a master in the sense that you know everything. I mean that you are now to the point where you are fine-tuning your game, where you're just shaving off hours. You're getting that cannon on the field a little bit sooner than everyone else. You're doing things that other people don't know about. You're doing things that other people don't worry about because they're so busy worrying about all these other details that they're trying to learn. So today we're going to talk about popularity. And in my opinion, this is part of the master class. It's something I am just beginning to understand. I think I'm maybe a late journeyman, and I might be ready to move into the early phases of master in maybe another year, right? So I'm not pretending to be there, But this is the thing, like, so for instance, when my dad was studying to take his exam, that's what I'm doing now. I'm studying these master level concepts so that I can apply them in my game, get used to them, and eventually feel competent in them and be able to, at that time, feel that I'm genuinely in that third phase of the player sort of arc, right? So we're going to talk today about something that I never thought about at all, really, except for sort of vaguely, this idea of popularity. I had a basic understanding of popularity because I did know that when a territory rebels, they will rebel to the nearest, most popular country, or I should say it the other way around, the most popular country that is nearby. That's who they'll rebel to. And sometimes it was me, and sometimes it was another country. And, you know, it was all sort of, at one point, I didn't even know that. You know, I just kind of thought, well, they just rebel, and that sucks because I had them and now I don't have them. Or wow, that's lucky. I just all of a sudden got this territory, you know, lucky me. No, it's not luck. So today we have another one of these Google slide decks. I'm going to share it with you in the comments below, in the description below, rather. And what that means is that when you leave this video, if you want to come and find this slide deck, it's a slideshow, whatever, just click in the description below, click on the slide link, and you'll see what I'm showing you right now. Okay, so you'll have that. If you want to star it or whatever, it will be there under your Google Drive for the future. Right now, I've got it set to whoever has the link can view it. So have at it. You can't change it. You can't modify it, but you can view it. So we're going to go ahead and look at today the popularity problem, or why everyone hates you. So let's talk about the author here a little bit. Dr. Hermes Poindexter Spankerton has written several influential best-selling books, such as Spanker, I Hardly Know Her, and Jeffrey Eats Ass. Many have lauded him as a luminary in his own time, and he has been credited for completely revolutionizing the meaning of the term turn the other cheek. His most recent work of academic genius, submitted to his editor despite no less than 3 restraining orders, promises to be his greatest accomplishment. In the following pages, you will be treated to a true visionary genius as he tackles the foremost question of our day. Why does everyone hate you? All right, popularity in the game of 1914. And I joke about why does everyone hate you, but frankly, if you've just been conquering through this game willy-nilly, by about day 20 to 25, everyone hates you. Okay, I can pretty much guarantee you that everyone hates you. So let's talk about it a little bit more detailed. What does it mean to your game? How does it impact your game? And I promise you, it impacts you in ways that you're not aware of, unless you're already studying to be in that master class, or if you're already in that master class. So let's talk a little bit more detail about popularity. We got some popular people here. Kanye, and I believe that's Northwest. So let's talk about popularity. From here on out, we're going to refer to it as pop. It's your standing in the world. Everything you do in the diplomatic arena is part of your ongoing popularity calculation. So whatever you do when you interact with other people, short of just text messaging them, right? When you do something formal, like giving them right-of-way or embargoing them, every time you declare war, every time you sneak attack somebody, even when you make a trade, it will affect your popularity. Okay, well, you know, a lot of people play this game and they win this game without even knowing what popularity is. And that's because they're not playing against other master players, right? When you enter a game, especially like a 31-player game, you know, maybe only 10 people will join, and then out of them, 8 of them, you know, eventually drop out, and then it's you and one other person. So, but if you go up against a high-level player, you need to be thinking about popularity. Also, if you're going against other people who are not high-level, knowing this and using this will ensure your victory. So, let's talk a little bit about what it means to be popular. Okay, it's bigger than you think. So if you have a high popularity, it increases the chance that AI around you will give you right of way. Okay, so We're going to talk a little bit more about right of way and how that comes into this whole metric. But have you noticed sometimes the AI around you will just give you right of way? All of a sudden they turn blue, and now you can walk on their country without any penalty. You can use their roads without, any worry of going to war with them. That's because if you have high popularity, AI will oftentimes just give you right of way. Okay, high popularity will also give you a better trade negotiations with all the AI countries. Now, this ends up being really, really huge. Okay, you have high popularity, so the other countries like you. Because they like you, they're going to give you more favorable trades. They'll buy your stuff for more, and they'll sell you stuff for less. Okay, if you think that is small, it is not small. It is huge. All right, we'll talk more about that later too. We're going to kind of wrap it up at the end here, but I just want to cover the bigger topics here at the beginning. Next, if territories rebel, they will go over to the highest popularity nation in the area. We talked about that. That's actually a really cool thing because people will often sort of attack through willy-nilly, not leaving anybody behind, and then you just get those territories free of charge. You don't have to go to war with anybody. You don't have to lose any forces. They just come right on over to you. Sometimes even there might be a few troops there. And they also, if there's troops there when the territory rebels, they'll come with. Recently, I earned a cannon. Somebody left a cannon on a territory, and the territory rebelled, and I got the cannon for free. It was wonderful. And then finally, high popularity nations will never be attacked by AI nations. So this is something that I've heard a lot of people, I see it in Reddit. I'm on the 1914 Reddit thread, and I see it from time to time. And people just, why did the AI just randomly attack me? Well, I promise you it's because you have low popularity. If you have high popularity, that just won't happen. So if you have a good 70, 75% popularity, you don't have to stack anyone on the border of AI. Okay, you just don't. You're free to do whatever you want because they will not attack you. Now, could an enemy nation have right of way with them and attack through them? Yeah. So, don't be dumb, be careful. But that is a huge thing as well. You will not be randomly attacked by AI if you have a high popularity. All right. So what if you're not popular? So this is something that that my friend Papa Smitty, who's part of our community. By the way, if you're interested in joining our community, I'm also going to put in the description below our Discord link. And the Discord is where we actually organize games and we communicate about games that we're in. So this is the YouTube channel. This is the subscriber community here. But then we go over to the Discord to, trade ideas, to ask questions, to ask advice, and also to communicate about games that we're in together. Because as you know, when you're in a game, spies can intercept your communications. So it's nice to be able to have communication outside of the game platform so that you cannot be spied upon. So the first thing that I did not know, Papa Smitty told us, he was like, you guys are Dread Nations. And we were like, what? Dread Nations? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, it's in the newspaper. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that. I remember seeing the world's most dreaded nations. I thought that was just sort of kind of a, like a cute thing that they did. Like, oh, I kind of thought like, well, these are the most badass nations or something, like these are the nations that are really kicking butt is initially what I thought, and then I think this flashes back. If you go to statistics, it flashes back and forth between this and maybe the most economically prosperous nations, right? It goes back and forth, it flashes back and forth. So if you don't see this, when you click on statistics, just wait a minute, it'll flash over to this. So no, Papa Smitty was like, no, that means that you have a really low popularity. And it means that all the AI countries, this is the next bullet here, will embargo you, which ruins your market trades. So particularly, especially we're talking about 100-player games, but even more so 500-player games. 500-player games are where the big boys play. All right, if you want to be on the tutorial maps, that's like 3 times the regular speed, that's fine. Especially, it's nice that the speed goes faster. But once you really start to get into the complexity of this game, you don't want those fast games. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot of preparations to make. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the back sort of behind the movement of troops that you want to be able to take care of. Once you get to that journeyman level, I think the sort of apprentice level people, they like the faster games, but once you get to journeyman level, you're like, no, actually the regular speed is just right for me. It gives me exactly enough time to check 2 or 3 times a day, go in and tweak things like my resources, my production, my economy, my buildings, what I'm producing, and all that kind of stuff. So, but this is really actually huge. When AI countries, and we're talking now on a 500 map, let's just default to 500, although it's true also for 100 player maps. But a 500 player map, you are talking hundreds of AI, okay? At least 100, probably more, because rarely do 500 actual human beings populate a map, right? In fact, never. So you have a bunch of countries that are just always AI. They just always are. No player can play that country because it's just a 2-territory country. It's basically always going to be AI. It shows up on your screen as the little square box, right? The computer screen box. But you'll have hundreds of them. So if you are on the dreaded nation, or in other words, if you have a 36% popularity or below, then you will be embargoed by all the AI nations. What does that mean? That means that whatever you're selling, it's selling for $1 per unit. Okay, no more of this 12 or 15 or 20 dollars per unit, or I should say silver per unit, whatever that particular monetary unit is, per ton, right? It means that whatever you're selling sells for cheap. They don't want to give you any money. They hate you. You are despised. You are not popular. So unlike what I was thinking, I was like, oh, they dread me. Oh, they're afraid of me. That's good. No, it's not good. And Papa Smitty pointed that out. Someone was complaining about that. They were like, my economy sucks, and I can't buy the things I want because it's too expensive. Well, that's the other part of it. When you want to buy something, it's going to cost 20. It's going to cost 25. It's not going to be cheap anymore because you are despised. You are low popularity. So this is actually really, really huge. And this is the thing that people don't think about. This is the master level stuff that people don't think about. If you think that trading on the stock market is not important, you are wrong. The difference between being able to buy steel for 3 silver per ton and 20 silver per ton, I mean, come on. It's huge. You can buy 7 times more steel at 3 silver per ton as opposed to 20, 21, 25 silver per ton. It's huge. If you think about it a different way, you can build 7 times more stuff. Okay, so again, if you're thinking this isn't a big deal, I want you to take your right hand, hold it up like you're saluting, and then I want you to turn it vertical, and then I want you to slap yourself in the face because, God damn it, this is huge, okay? Having a favorable market deep into the early game and into the middle game is really important, okay? Whatever you produce that you don't need, you can sell, right, at a good price. And then whatever you need, you can turn around and buy at an equally good price, okay? So in other words, you can buy low and sell high, right? It's the old tip, right, from the stock market. So I really can't emphasize this one enough right here. This idea that if you're not popular, you will be embargoed, and that will ruin your market trades, which will in turn cripple you economically. Okay, another big one here is, of course, AI countries will attack you for no reason except for the fact that you suck. Okay, they won't. There's no reason. They don't need it. If you leave people behind or if you don't leave people behind, there's none of that. It's just if you're low pop, eventually they will attack you. So if you've got AI adjacent to you and nearby, and you don't want to go to war with them because you're doing other stuff, keep your popularity high so that they don't just randomly attack you. Okay, and then finally, if your popularity is low, provinces that rebel near you will never come over to you. So you can just forget about it. And especially if your own provinces rebel, right? They'll go over to that guy across the way that has a better popularity. All right, so we're still not talking. I'm not wrapping it up yet. I'm still kind of hitting the high points. But before we go into the consequences of all of this, let's talk about how to be popular, right? Go from zero to hero with these steps. First of all, obviously, smile, good posture, firm handshake, right? Coy side glances. There's lots of things you can do to be popular. This guy, no, man. Why are you looking at this guy's butt? Okay, I mean, to each their own, but you're not making a good impression on the lady here. So if you want to be popular, here's what you got to do. As soon as you start the game, give right of way to every AI in the map. Right? What does that mean? That means go ahead and go over to, let's go over there right now. Oops. Bada bing, bada boom. Happen to be in a game right now. So let's go over to Diplomacy. And from Diplomacy, let's go to AI. Click on it twice. And all the robot heads will show up here. One by one, go and give them right of way. One by one, go in there, give every one of these bastards right of way. Let's just take a look. I mean, here we are. This is a game that I'm deep into here. My popularity is 31. That's terrible. I'm one of the Dread Nations, so 31. Popularity 31. Let's go ahead and go to Diplomacy, back over here to my AI. Whoops. 31%, right? Back over to the computer heads. 31%. I'm just going to give right of way because I have 31% popularity. It takes a minute on these bigger games, these 500-player games. If you're playing a 100-player game, it actually bumps over pretty quickly. But because my popularity is 31%, I really want to make amends. I want to make friendly with these folks over here. So, hey, what I'm basically saying is I'm like, hey, come on over here. Come hang out with me. And we can skip and play because my popularity is 31, guys. And so come on over here, please. And yet, my popularity is not 31, it's 33. What? You watched me in real time improve my popularity by giving right of way to AI. Okay, and this is pretty late in the game, by the way. So just trying to show you in real time, it's really easy to do. Go ahead and give right of way to every AI on the map. Now, the next big thing, do not surprise attack. So I know lots of you just attack, right? Yeah, just I'm ready to attack. I'm going to go ahead and attack. Well, when you just attack without declaring war, it is considered an egregious attack, and you lose a lot of popularity. I think as many as 20 percentage points. So declare war first. You can even get everybody in position. You can move up to the borders. Sometimes you can even move into the territory without actually having them go to war with you. Get as close as you can. I'm not against that. But before you actually attack, declare war. Okay, declare war first. Then it's not a surprise attack. It's still a pretty bad penalty. It's about 15% to your popularity. So one of the things we've been talking about on this channel, and I'll tell you up front, it has not been proven, but there's some really promising early research that if you want to attack a country, embargo them first, right? So go back to that diplomacy menu that we just saw and go over to embargo and embargo them first, and then let the day change, right? Let it go to the next day and then declare war. So initial reports are it reduces that penalty of declaring war substantially. So give that a try, and I'll probably come back with a video about that on this Tips and Tactics channel soon. Okay, and again, as player characters drop out and become AI, go ahead and give them right of way as well. So you'll see them as they drop out. Instead of being a man silhouette, that'll be the man silhouette with the two squares behind him. That means that they're AI now. Go ahead and click on that and give them right of way as well, because it generally is about 1 percentage point for every AI that you give right of way to. Okay, so every percentage point counts. Okay, make direct player-to-player trades as often as you can. So if you're in an alliance or a coalition, go ahead and make trades between you. We've seen 1 or 2 percentage points. It's not big, but if you make a bunch of trades, you can actually improve your popularity that way. And then finally, this is a great one. This is sort of master level stuff too. Use diplomacy. Use the newspaper. Call people dipshits. Be a troll. Goad people into attacking you. If you want to go to war with somebody, you can frequently just give them lip. Just be a troll. Be a jerk. And you'd be surprised at how many people, oh, yeah, well, I've got blah, blah, blah. And so they take the 15% penalty to their popularity. You don't take any penalty at all, and you get the war that you wanted. So don't belittle the idea of goading someone into attacking you. Historically, this has happened a lot of times. I could give you several examples, but I think probably the most popular one, or the most relevant one in the United States was that during the Civil War, when the South seceded from the Union, the North kept forts in the South. Okay, kept forts in the South, and basically just saying, go ahead, shoot at our forts. Go ahead. And what happened? Yeah, Fort Sumter, Beauregard attacked and started the war. And I think most people can agree that that's what the North wanted to happen. If the South had not attacked a federal fort, not attacked the flag, they might have seceded without a war. That's debatable. But the North goaded them into it, right? Goaded them into attacking. They just couldn't take it that these forts were still in southern waters. That particular fort was an island, but still, in the South. So goad people into attacking you whenever possible. This is something I have not had confirmed, but I believe I believe this because I've been in a game where this happened to me and my popularity was really good and I wasn't sure why. And then later on, somebody told me if somebody sneak attacks you, it actually bumps up your popularity because people are sympathetic towards that. So even better, if you can goad someone into attacking you and they forget to declare war on you first, then your popularity actually goes up and you get the war that you wanted all along. All right, this video is getting long, but it's an important topic. It really is. So I hope that this is not too long for YouTube. I hope that we can fit the whole video on my channel here. But let's talk about the big picture now. Let's bring it all together. When you start the game, go ahead and give right-of-way to everyone, as we mentioned. Get that popularity as high as you can. You can get it up to maybe 80%, okay? Once you get it up high like that, you've given all the AI right-of-way, then what I do is I go into the trade menu, right, which is where, as if you were going to go ahead and message the AI and then offer them that trade of right-of-way. Now, you've already given them right-of-way, but you're offering the trade of right-of-way, which, of course, in the trade menu just shows up, I demand right-of-way in exchange for right-of-way, right? So you're putting the trade out there. It makes it much more likely that they'll give you right-of-way. Now, why is that good? Because now if you have right-of-way with a lot of the AI around you, you can use that to sneak attack other player characters in your region. Remember, the player characters are your real enemies in the early game, because if you have high popularity, then the AIs are basically your allies. They're basically your friends, especially once you start to get that right-of-way with them going. Okay, next, use favorable markets to sell your excess resources at a profit, whether you need the silver or not. You might think, oh, I'll hold on to it. I don't want to sell it now because I don't need the silver. Well, guess what? As you move through the game, your popularity will go down. It's unavoidable because you're going to be attacking people. This is a game of war after all, right? So early on, while you've got that sweet ass, you can sell stuff for 25 silver per ton. Sell it and stockpile that silver, because the silver will always have value, right? It doesn't go up or down with the markets. Okay. So stockpile. Now, this is a big one. Early on, when you've got all that good trade, build heavily towards your economy. Now, this is not something I did in the past, but it turns out that some of the really good players do this. I used to only build factories and railways on my double resource tiles, but I'm starting to rethink that. If early in the game, you build level 4 factories on all of your beginning tiles. Now, keep in mind, you usually only start with about 8 to 10 tiles, depending on the game you're playing. So I'm not talking about building everything, but I'm talking about your home country. Build the crap out of it. Build that economy strong. So develop out to the maximum you possibly can. Now, why is that? Because as I mentioned, your popularity will go down. The markets will turn against you. If you make it to the middle or late middle or even end game, you're going to be selling stuff for $1, right? For 1 silver per ton. That's just the way it goes. Eventually, your popularity goes down. You can't avoid it. But what you can do is get your economy humming so that you don't need to make trades. Rather, you're producing organically from your own economy all of these materials that you need for your war machine. So early on, when you've got that popularity, when you got the market working in your favor, that's when you build heavy, heavy economic development in your home country. Now, here's the other reason why that's good is that when you build a railroad, that gives you plus 7% morale. When you build that harbor, I believe it gives you plus 5% morale. When you build up to a level 4 factory, that gives you plus 10 morale. Why am I mentioning this? Because eventually you're going to have to conquer forward, maybe onto another continent, and you're going to have to move your capital. If you don't understand why to move your capital, then we're going to have to make a whole other video about morale and why morale is also, I think morale is late journeyman. Like as you're finishing up your journeymanship, that's when you really start to concentrate on morale. And then once you master morale, that's when you really start to look at popularity and start to move into that. It's like layers, right? Layers of complexity. So, but it's all tied together because if you have heavy development in your home region, then when you move your capital away, you've got all these morale developing buildings, which will keep your home morale from plummeting when you move your capital away. And so as an aside, if you don't know this, you should know this, that morale gets lower and lower the further away from your capital you are. So the penalty, I should say rather, the penalty gets higher and higher the further away you are. So the idea is develop your home stuff heavily. And then when you move your morale forward to stay up with your new conquering, then the older territories will be just fine. They'll stay at 100% morale because they have all these economic development buildings. Like I said, railway gives you plus 7%. Level 4 factory gives you plus 10%. Maybe you have a fort or two. Each fort gives you plus 5% per level of fort. The harbor gives you plus 5%, I believe. So again, it all fits together. It all sort of comes together in one magical sort of, once you reach that master level, you're firing on all pistons. Let's put it that way. So that's it, guys. This is the big picture with popularity, how to play your game early on using that market to build your economy. And don't forget, you still got to have military units. You're still spreading outwards. You're using the right of way to sneak attack some of the other player characters. You're leaving the AI alone for the most part, right? You're leaving them alone because they're basically your allies early on. Later on, you can take something if you want it. But most time, the AI are not stacked on doubles anyway. Usually, they're just stacked on single economy territories. So keep all this in mind. Move forward. Good luck. This is big stuff. This is something you're going to have to practice as you move forward. And I say to you guys, good luck. Thanks for checking in. Again, this slideshow is available in the description below, as is our Discord communities link. So I hope you can join us there as well. As always, adios, amigo.